Tonight, you will listen to simple stories that have helped people settle a restless mind and ease into real rest. You do not need any experience with meditation. You do not need to do anything perfectly. You only need to be here, listening, and letting the night do what it naturally does. These are 10 Zen stories. Each one carries a small piece of wisdom, not as a lesson to memorize, but as something your mind can recognize and relax into. Over the next 3 hours, you may notice the grip of the day loosening, thoughts slowing, the body softening without effort. Many people find that a calm sleep arrives simply by listening, the way a lake becomes clear when it is no longer stirred. There is an old Zen saying, "Peace comes from within." Do not seek it outside. Tonight, you do not have to chase peace. You can let it come to you the way sleep comes when you stop trying to force it. As we move through stories of quiet monks, empty boats, and unexpected wisdom, let your attention be gentle. Nothing intense, nothing to figure out, just a steady, soothing flow, like walking slowly in the dark where you already know the path. Make yourself comfortable now. Adjust your pillow. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Feel the weight of your body settling into the bed. Take one slow breath in, and as you breathe out, allow the exhale to be a small letting go. You have already begun. Let us begin with our first story. It takes place by a quiet river, where a simple lesson about reaction is waiting. This is the story of the empty boat. There once was a man who loved to row his boat along a peaceful river. He found joy in drifting on the water, surrounded by calm and solitude. Each evening, as the sun lowered and the light turned soft and gold, he would take his boat out for a quiet ride. One evening, as he paddled gently, he noticed another boat heading straight toward him. At first, he called out politely, "Be careful." But the boat did not turn. It kept coming. His voice grew sharper. "Move aside. You are going to crash into me." His peaceful evening filled with frustration as the boat drew closer, and his chest tightened with anger. Then the two boats collided. He turned, ready to shout at the careless boater. But when he looked closely, he saw the other boat was empty. No one was inside. It was only drifting, carried by the current. In that moment, his anger dissolved. He felt almost embarrassed, as if he had been arguing with the river itself. Nothing about the event had changed. The boats still collided. What changed was his understanding. There was no intention, no disrespect, no carelessness to blame. Buddhist teaching often points to this. We suffer not only from what happens, but from what we add to what happens. The mind quickly creates a story about why it happened, and who meant what, and what it says about us. Many moments in daily life are like empty boats. A driver cuts in front of you. A message goes unanswered. A co-worker seems distant. A stranger looks past you. The mind rushes to fill the empty space with meaning, and that meaning becomes fuel for irritation. But when we pause, we sometimes see the truth. We do not know what is inside the other boat. We do not know what current is moving it. The Buddha taught that anger harms the one who holds it first. It burns the hand that grips it. So in this Zen sleep story, we practice a softer way. When a small frustration appears, you can quietly ask yourself, is this an empty boat? Is my mind adding a story? And if it is, you can let that story loosen. There is relief in that. Now, let us move to a mountain path, where another lesson is waiting. This is the story of the monk and the tiger. Long ago, in a quiet monastery deep in the forest, there lived a peaceful monk. Each day he took slow walks through the trees, letting nature steady his mind. One day, as he walked along a narrow path, a roar burst through the woods. He turned. A tiger was charging toward him. Fear rose instantly, and he ran. The tiger closed the distance fast. The monk's robes flew behind him as he sprinted down the path, searching for any escape. Ahead, the path ended at a cliff. A vine hung down the side. Without hesitation, he grabbed the vine and climbed down. As he descended, his heart sank. At the bottom of the cliff, another tiger paced, waiting. One tiger above, one tiger below. No way up, no way down. The monk hung there, suspended, and then he noticed something small on the cliffside. A wild strawberry plant. One ripe red strawberry glowing softly against the rock. In that moment, the monk reached out, plucked the strawberry, and placed it in his mouth. He tasted it slowly, sweet, fresh, perfect. For one brief moment, all that existed was the taste of the strawberry. The tigers were still there. The danger had not vanished. But his mind stopped racing into panic. He met the moment as it was and found a drop of peace inside it. The Buddha taught that peace is found in the present moment, not in the past and not in the future. This story reminds us how often we live between two tigers. Behind us, the past, regrets, old wounds, memories we replay. Ahead of us, the future, worries, imagined disasters, endless planning. And right here, in the middle, is the strawberry, a small sweetness that can only be tasted now. It might be the warmth of your blanket, the weight of your body sinking into the bed, the quiet rhythm of breathing, the simple safety of this moment. You do not need a perfect life to find a small peace. You only need a moment of presence, even a gentle one. Now, our next story offers another clear teaching. This is the story of the two arrows. One day, the Buddha was sitting with his disciples in a peaceful forest clearing. Trees swayed softly in the breeze, and birdsong moved through the air. A troubled disciple approached and bowed. "Master," the disciple said, "I do not understand why we suffer so much. Pain seems to follow us. Why is this? And how can we find peace in the middle of it?" The Buddha looked at the disciple with calm kindness. "Imagine a person is struck by an arrow," he said. "It hurts. The pain is real. This is the first arrow." The disciples nodded. They understood the first arrow as the unavoidable pains of life, illness, loss, disappointment, fatigue. Then the Buddha continued, "Now imagine that after being struck by the first arrow, the person is struck by a second arrow. This second arrow does not come from outside. It is created by the mind. It is the fear, the anger, the bitterness, the endless thoughts that follow the pain. This is the second arrow." He paused, letting the image settle. "The first arrow is unavoidable," he said. "The second arrow is optional." The disciple listened closely as the Buddha explained that when pain arrives, we often add another layer. We resist the pain. We argue with it. We panic about it. We blame ourselves or others, and that reaction deepens the wound. "Master," the disciple asked, "how do we avoid the second arrow? How do we keep the mind from adding more suffering?" The Buddha smiled gently. "By practicing mindfulness," he said, "we can observe thoughts and feelings without becoming trapped inside them. When we feel pain, we can acknowledge it without judgment. We can accept that pain is part of life, and we do not need to add more suffering by resisting it or feeding it with harsh thoughts. In this way, we can stop the second arrow before it strikes. It is often said, pain is unavoidable. The extra suffering we add is optional. Life will bring first arrows, a sore body, a disappointment, a loss, a hard conversation, a restless night. What drains us is the second arrow. The thought that says, this should not be happening. The thought that says, why me? The thought that says, it will never get better. There are a few common ways the second arrow appears. One is resistance. The mind tightens against what is unpleasant. Another is taking it personally. Instead of noticing, there is pain. We say, I am broken. I am failing. I cannot handle this. Another is the mind spinning forward. A small discomfort becomes a chain of worries, one after another, until the body is tense and the breath becomes shallow. Mindfulness is simply noticing this, gently, without fighting it. If you feel discomfort tonight, you can let it be the first arrow only. You can say quietly, this is pain, and soften your grip. You can let the breath move around it. You can let the body settle in its own time. In this gentle Zen sleep story, we are not trying to force pain away. We are learning not to add fuel. Now we turn to another story, one that speaks about loss, and the peace that can come from understanding we are not alone in it. This is the parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, there lived a young woman named Kisa Gautami. She was devoted to her family, and she loved her only child deeply. Then her little son became ill, and he died. Kisa could not accept it. She carried his body in her arms and went from house to house, pleading for someone to bring him back. Some people turned away in sorrow. Others tried to comfort her, but no one could give her what she was asking. At last, someone said, "Go to the Buddha. If anyone can help, perhaps he can." Kisa hurried to the Buddha and fell to her knees. "Please," she begged, "bring my child back. I cannot bear this." The Buddha looked at her with great compassion. He did not argue with her grief. He did not shame her desperation. He said softly, "I can help you, but first, bring me a mustard seed." Kisa felt hope rise. Mustard seeds were common. She could do this. Then the Buddha added, "Bring a mustard seed from a house that has never known death." Kisa went into the village at once. She knocked on the first door. A kind person listened and shook their head. "Someone has died here." She went to the next house. "Someone has died here too." House after house, door after door, she heard the same thing. A father, a mother, a child, a sister, a friend. As the day went on, her desperate hope slowly changed into a deeper understanding. Death had touched every home. By sunset, Kisa returned to the Buddha with empty hands and a quieter heart. "Master," she said, "I could not find a single house untouched by death. Every family has known loss." The Buddha nodded gently. "You have seen an important truth," he said. "Loss is part of life. It comes to all. When we fight the truth of change, grief becomes heavier. When we accept what cannot be undone, peace can begin to appear." Kisa understood then that her sorrow was not hers alone. She had been isolated inside her pain, believing no one could understand. But now she saw the shared human reality, and in that understanding, she found enough strength to lay her child to rest with dignity. This is not a story that asks us to love loss. It simply reminds us that nothing we love can be held forever. When we remember this, we do not become colder. We often become more tender, more grateful, more present. If you have known loss, you know the ache of it, and you also know that when grief is shared, it becomes a little less lonely. Now we move to a story about judgment and the way the mind rushes to label life as good or bad. This is the farmer and the horse. Once, in a small village, there lived a farmer. He worked hard, lived simply, and had one horse to help him with his daily tasks. One morning, the horse was gone. The stable was empty. The neighbors hurried over. "What terrible luck," they said. "How will you manage?" The farmer looked at them and said, "Maybe." A few days later, the horse returned, and it brought several wild horses with it. The neighbors rushed back. "What wonderful luck! Now you are rich in horses." The farmer said again, "Maybe." Not long after, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses. He fell and broke his leg. The neighbors returned. "What bad luck! This is truly unfortunate." The farmer said, "Maybe." A few weeks later, soldiers came to the village to draft young men for war. Many sons were taken away, but the farmer's son, with his broken leg, was left behind. The neighbors came again. "How fortunate you are. Your son was spared." And the farmer said, as always, "Maybe." This is not indifference. It is steadiness. Life keeps unfolding. What looks like misfortune can turn into protection. What looks like a blessing can bring new difficulty. The mind wants to decide too quickly. Good, bad, win, loss. But the farmer stayed with what he could actually know, which was only the moment in front of him. This is a quiet kind of freedom. It calms the mind. It helps us hold life with softer hands. If you find yourself judging your day tonight, you can remember the farmer. Maybe. And with that one word, the body often loosens. The breath often smooths out. The mind stops racing ahead. We will continue from here, deeper into the next turning of the story, letting the night grow quieter and letting sleep come naturally. Sometimes what looks like bad luck becomes a turning point, an illness that forces you to reassess what matters, a setback that teaches resilience. Later, you can see how a closed door quietly opened another path. One old saying puts it simply: what looks like a curse may become a blessing, and what looks like a blessing may bring its own difficulties. The farmer understood this, not as a theory, but as a way of living. His maybe was not giving up. It was wisdom, the reminder that the story is still unfolding, and that our quick judgments are often too small for the full picture. Tonight, if you find yourself labeling something as good or bad, try holding it with that gentle maybe. Notice how the body softens when it stops arguing with life. This is one small way the mind learns to rest. Now we move to another story, one that teaches calm strength. This is the Buddha and the angry man. One day, while the Buddha was teaching in a peaceful forest, a man approached with anger in his eyes. He felt threatened by the Buddha's presence and jealous of the attention others gave him. He wanted to provoke a reaction. He marched up and began to shout insults, harsh and loud, in front of everyone. The Buddha stayed calm. He did not strike back. He did not defend himself. He simply looked at the man with quiet attention. This only made the man more agitated. He shouted louder, demanding a response. After several minutes, his voice tired. He paused, breathing hard, confused that his anger had found no target. Finally he said, "Why will you not answer me? Why will you not defend yourself? Do you not care what I think?" The Buddha spoke softly. "Tell me," he said, "if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man frowned and thought. "It still belongs to the one who offered it," he said. "If I do not take it, it stays with them." The Buddha nodded. "In the same way," he said, "if you offer me anger and I do not accept it, then who carries it?" The man went quiet. He realized his anger had not harmed the Buddha. It had only exhausted his own body and disturbed his own mind. The Buddha continued, "If I do not take your insults, they remain with you. You are the one who holds them. I choose not to carry what you are trying to give me. I choose peace." The man stood there, humbled. His face changed. The heat inside him began to cool. At last he bowed his head. "How can I learn to have peace like that?" he asked. The Buddha answered with a simple image. Anger is like a hot coal you pick up, planning to throw it at someone else. The one who gets burned first is you, so let the coal fall. This is not weakness, this is strength, a steady mind, a quiet heart, the kind of strength that helps you sleep deeply, because it does not spend the night replaying arguments and carrying bitterness. Someone may offer you their irritation, their criticism, their harshness. You can take it and hold it in your chest, or you can let it remain where it came from. Tonight, if any tense memory rises, you can imagine it as a gift you do not need to accept. You can let the shoulders loosen. You can let the breath slow. You can let the mind return to quiet. Now we turn to another story, one that speaks gently about impermanence and holding life lightly. This is the monk and the teacup. In a quiet Zen monastery in the mountains, a revered monk lived a simple life of meditation, tea, and teaching. Students admired his calm presence, the way he met each day without being pulled off balance. One afternoon, during tea, the monk lifted a plain clay teacup and held it in his hands for a long moment. The cup was simple, earth-colored, smooth and round, shaped by careful hands. Sometimes what looks like bad luck becomes a turning point, an illness that forces you to reassess what matters, a setback that builds resilience. Later, you may see how a loss quietly opened another path. A poet once wrote that what seems like a curse may become a blessing, and what seems like a blessing may become a burden. The farmer lived this as a simple truth. His maybe was not resignation. It was calm wisdom, the reminder that life is still unfolding, and we rarely see the whole story in one moment. The mind loves labels, good luck, bad luck, right, wrong. But reality keeps moving, changing shape. Tonight, you can hold your own thoughts and worries with the farmer's gentle maybe, not to deny anything, only to loosen the tight grip of judgment. This softens the body. It eases the mind. It helps you fall asleep naturally. Now, another story about calm strength. This is the Buddha and the angry man. One day, while the Buddha was teaching in a quiet forest, a man approached with anger burning in his face. He felt jealous and threatened. He wanted to provoke the Buddha in front of everyone. He stepped forward and began to insult him, loudly and sharply. The Buddha remained still. His face did not harden. He did not argue. He simply looked at the man with steady attention. The man grew louder, frustrated that his anger found no target. After a while, his shouting weakened. His breath became heavy. Confused, he demanded, "Why will you not answer me? Why will you not defend yourself?" The Buddha spoke softly. "Tell me," he said, "if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" The man hesitated. "It still belongs to the one who offered it," he said. The Buddha nodded. "And if you offer me anger and I do not accept it, then who carries it?" The man fell silent. He understood that his anger had not harmed the Buddha at all. It had only disturbed his own mind. The Buddha said, "If I do not take your insults, they remain with you. I choose not to carry what you are offering. I choose peace." The man's face softened. His shoulders dropped. He bowed his head. "How can I learn that kind of peace?" he asked. The Buddha answered with a simple image. Anger is like a hot coal you pick up, hoping to throw it at someone else. The one who gets burned first is you, so let the coal fall. This is not weakness, it is freedom, a mind that does not need to fight. Tonight, if a tense memory returns, you can remember this. Not every gift must be accepted. You can let it pass through and return to quiet. Now, back to the teacup. The students watched their teacher holding the simple clay cup. waiting for him to speak. After a few moments, the monk smiled and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students looked at the cup. It was whole, smooth, perfectly intact. One student asked, "Master, the cup is not broken. Why do you say it is?" The monk placed the cup gently on the table. "In my mind," he said, "it is already broken. It may break tomorrow or years from now, but one day it will break. This is the nature of all things." He looked at the cup again, as if seeing it clearly. "When I remember it will not last, I can enjoy it without fear. I can drink tea from it and appreciate it fully, without clinging." The students grew quiet. They understood he was not only speaking about the cup. The monk said, "Everything is like this. Every object, every moment, every relationship. When we accept that life changes, we can love more deeply, not with fear, but with presence." An older student asked, "Does this mean we should not care because everything ends?" The monk shook his head. "No," he said. "It means the opposite. Because things pass, they are precious. When you stop trying to make them permanent, you can meet them with a peaceful heart." In this gentle Zen sleep story, the teacup is a reminder. We do not hold life less, we hold it more softly. Now, a story about generosity. This is the Buddha and the robe. Long ago, when the Buddha traveled from village to village, many people came to see him. Some offered food, some offered shelter, some offered gifts. One day, a wealthy merchant arrived carrying a beautiful robe, finely woven and far more luxurious than a monk would ever need. He bowed and said, "I wish to offer this to you, in gratitude for your teachings." The Buddha looked at the robe, then at the man, and smiled. "Thank you," he said, "but I cannot accept it. It is too extravagant. I have what I need." The merchant insisted, "But surely you deserve the best I can give." The Buddha replied, "If you wish to honor me, take this robe and give it to someone who truly needs it. Someone who has little clothing, someone who is cold. That gift will carry more kindness into the world." The merchant paused, then he nodded. Later, he found a poor man in the village shivering in thin rags. He gave him the robe. The man's eyes filled with relief and gratitude. The next day, the merchant returned and told the Buddha what he had done. The Buddha nodded. "True generosity," he said, "is not about giving to impress. It is about easing real need." The merchant felt a warm joy in his chest, different from pride, quieter, more real. This is a simple teaching. Giving brings peace, not only to the one who receives, but to the one who gives. Sometimes we give for money or food. Sometimes we give time. Sometimes we give patient attention, which can be just as valuable. Now, another story about putting down what no longer needs to be carried. This is the two monks and the river. Two monks, an older one and a younger one, were traveling together. Their path led them through forests and valleys, and they walked mostly in silence. They came to a river swollen from rain. A young woman stood at the edge, distressed. She feared crossing, afraid the current would pull her, afraid the water would ruin her clothes. She asked for help. Without hesitation, the older monk lifted her carefully, carried her across, and set her down safely on the other side. She thanked him and walked away. The monks continued on their journey. Hours passed. The younger monk grew more and more tense. His brow tightened. Finally, he could not hold it in. "Master," he said, "we have vows not to touch women. How could you carry her?" The older monk looked at him gently. "I set her down at the riverbank hours ago," he said. "Why are you still carrying her?" The younger monk fell silent. He realized the older monk had carried her for a few minutes, out of compassion, then returned to the present. But he had carried her in his mind for hours, burdened by judgment. So much of our suffering is like this. We put something down in life but keep holding it in thought. Tonight, if the mind brings back something from earlier, you can notice it and set it down again. You do not have to carry it across the whole night. Now, a story about openness. This is the empty cup. A university professor visited a Zen master, wanting to learn Zen. The professor had studied many philosophies, written books, and felt confident in his understanding. The master welcomed him warmly. "Let us have tea first," the master said. He placed a cup in front of the professor and began to pour. The cup filled to the brim, but the master kept pouring. Tea spilled over the rim, across the table, and onto the professor's clothes. The professor jumped up. "Stop! The cup is full. No more will go in." The master set down the pot and said calmly, "Like this cup, you are full of your own ideas. How can you learn anything new until you empty your cup?" The professor stood in silence, and something softened in him. Not knowing, he realized, was not failure. It was the beginning. Now, a story about finding truth in ordinary places. This is the Zen master and the muddy road. A Zen master traveled with disciples along a country road. Heavy rain had turned the path to mud. Their sandals slipped, their robes splashed. The road was messy and slow. They saw a beautiful temple on a hill and went up to visit. Inside were fine carvings, golden statues, clean stone floors, and priests performing elaborate rituals. The disciples were impressed. On the way out, one asked, "Master, is this the path to awakening?" The master did not answer right away. He led them back down to the muddy road. He knelt, pressed his hand into the wet earth, and drew a simple circle in the mud. Then he said, "Truth is here too." The disciples began to understand. Wisdom is not trapped inside perfect places. It is found in real life, in ordinary moments, even in the messy ones. Tonight, you do not need perfect conditions to rest. You only need to be here in this moment, letting the mind become quiet. Now, a story about mastery. This is the master archer. Long ago, in China, there lived a master archer known throughout the land for extraordinary skill. His arrows never missed, and his fame reached even the emperor, who honored him with riches and praise. One day, a young archer came to him, eager to learn. "Master," the young man said, bowing deeply, "I have practiced for many years and gained some skill, but I want to reach the highest mastery as you have. Please share with me the secret that makes your arrows never miss." The master archer looked at the young man for a moment, then nodded. "Meet me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain," he said. "Bring your bow and arrows." Before sunrise, the student arrived. The air was cold and still. The master was already waiting, but there was no practice range, no targets lined up in the distance. They stood at the edge of a cliff, with open space and a deep valley far below. The master stepped calmly to the very edge. He drew his bow, released an arrow, and watched it fly into the morning. Then he turned to the student. "Now you stand here and shoot." The young archer walked forward, but when he looked down, his stomach tightened. The drop made his head spin. His knees weakened. His hands began to shake as he tried to set an arrow. After a few attempts, he stepped back, breathing hard. "I cannot shoot from here, master," he admitted. "The height makes me dizzy. Fear makes my hands unsteady. How can I hit the target when I am afraid of falling?" The master nodded, gentle and calm. "This is the secret you are looking for," he said. "The difference between us is not strength or technique. It is that when I shoot, there is only the bow, the arrow, and the target. No fear, no thought of success or failure. No concern about praise or blame. There is not even a self who is shooting. There is only one complete action. He watched the student with quiet kindness. You miss your mark not because your skill is lacking, he said, but because you are divided. Part of you shoots the arrow, and another part is busy fearing, hoping, worrying, and watching yourself. When you can shoot with your whole being, without division, the arrow will fly true. The young archer bowed. He understood that he had been given something deeper than a technique, a way of being. This kind of steadiness is what Zen points toward, not forcing the mind, but letting it become whole. A calm mind, a quiet focus, the same kind of presence that makes deep sleep come more naturally when we stop struggling and simply rest. Now, another story about finding a new path when the old one feels blocked. This is the Zen master and the heavy stone. In a mountain village, the main road was partly blocked by a massive stone that had fallen from the cliffs above. It was so heavy that no one could move it. Strong men pushed together and it would not budge. Others tried to break it, but it only scratched. Some tried digging around it, but it was deeply set. After many failures, the villagers went to a Zen master who lived nearby and asked for help. The master agreed to come. A crowd gathered as he arrived. Everyone expected him to offer a clever technique or organize a stronger effort. Instead, the old master walked slowly around the stone, looking at it from every angle. Then he turned to the villagers and asked a simple question. Why must the stone be moved? The villagers were confused. Because it blocks the road, one of them said. It slows our carts and makes travel difficult. The master nodded. The stone blocks one path, he said, but perhaps it creates another. Then he guided them in clearing a new route around the boulder. With many hands working together, they formed a smooth path that curved gently around the stone. The problem was solved. Over time, the stone became a landmark. Children climbed it. Elders rested beside it. Travelers used it as a meeting point. The thing they once hated became part of the village. Before leaving, the Zen master said quietly, "Some obstacles cannot be removed. Wisdom is finding a way to live with them, or around them. What looks like a blockage may be showing you a different direction. In life, we often strain against the heavy stone, trying the same method again and again. Sometimes relief comes not from pushing harder, but from seeing differently. And now, a story about letting go and putting down what the mind keeps carrying. This is the story of two traveling monks. Two monks, Tanzan and Aikido, were traveling together on a muddy country road during the rainy season. The ground was wet and the path was flooded in places. As they walked, they came to a young woman dressed in fine clothes. She stood at the edge of a large muddy crossing, distressed. She could not pass without soaking herself. Without a word, Tanzan stepped forward, lifted her carefully, carried her across the mud, and set her down on the other side. She thanked him and went on her way. The two monks continued walking in silence. Hours passed. Aikido's face tightened. His mind kept returning to what had happened. At last, he could not hold it in. "Brother Tanzan," he said, "we are not supposed to touch women, especially young women. Why did you carry her?" Tanzan looked at him calmly. "I put her down at the crossing hours ago," he said. "Why are you still carrying her?" Aikido fell silent. He realized Tanzan had carried the woman for a few moments, then returned to the road. But Aikido had carried her in thought for hours, with judgment and agitation. This is a quiet lesson. We often put something down in life, but keep lifting it again in the mind. We replay a conversation. We rehearse a mistake. We drag a worry from 1 hour into the next. In Zen drift sleep, we practice something simpler. When the mind picks up an old burden, we notice it, and we set it down again. Now, a story about silence and how peace can exist even in a noisy world. This is the cricket in the temple. In a busy Japanese city, a temple stood for centuries, its roof catching the sunlight. Outside the walls, there was traffic, construction, and crowds. But within the temple grounds, a quiet calm seemed to live in the air. One day, a young musician visited. He had studied music and meditation, and he was curious about the kind of silence people spoke of in this place. He walked slowly through the temple gates, listening carefully. As he sat quietly in a corner of the main hall, the young musician closed his eyes and listened. At first, he noticed footsteps, distant city sounds, the soft movement of air. Then, beneath it all, he heard something faint and steady, a small rhythmic sound so quiet he almost thought he imagined it. Curious, he followed the sound and found a tiny cricket living in a crack in one of the old wooden pillars. He was amazed. How could a sound so small be heard in such a large space? He approached an elderly monk who was sweeping the floor and asked, "Have you noticed there is a cricket living in that pillar?" The monk smiled. "Ah, you have heard our little friend. He has lived here for many years." "But how is it possible," the musician asked, "that such a tiny sound can be heard in this temple, with all the noise outside?" The monk set his broom down and guided the young man toward the entrance. Then he reached into his robe and brought out a single coin. "Watch," he said. He dropped the coin onto the stone floor. At the sound, many visitors turned their heads at once. The monk looked at the musician. "People hear what they are listening for," he said quietly. "The coin is not louder than the cricket, but almost everyone notices it because they have been trained to listen for money. The cricket sings day and night, but few notice because they are not listening for small voices." The musician stood very still. The monk continued, "When the mind quiets, you begin to hear what others miss. Not only crickets, but the gentle wisdom that is always here beneath the noise. True silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of attention." The young musician bowed, understanding something simple and deep. Inner quiet is not fought for. It is listened for. Tonight, as you rest, you do not need perfect silence around you. Even if there are small sounds, you can let them pass like wind through trees. The deeper quiet is the quiet inside. Now, another story about presence. This is the Zen master and the strawberries. A Zen student came to his teacher with a troubled heart. "Master," he said, "I have studied for years, but my mind is still restless. When I sit, thoughts flood in. During the day, I am pulled by worries about the future and regrets about the past. How can I find peace?" The master listened, then said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." He led the student down a narrow mountain path. They walked in silence until they reached a high cliff overlooking a wide valley. Far below, a river curved through forests and fields, shining in afternoon light. The master sat near the edge and motioned for the student to sit as well. Then he reached into his robe and placed 2 ripe strawberries on the ground, one in front of the student, one in front of himself. "Eat," the master said, and lifted his strawberry. The student felt confused. His question felt important. This seemed too simple. Still, he obeyed. He took a bite. The taste was sweet and bright. The scent was vivid. He had eaten strawberries many times, yet this one felt different. as if he was tasting it for the first time. When they finished, the master asked, "While you were eating, where was your mind?" The student paused. "It was here," he said. "It was with the taste, with the strawberry." And in those moments, the master asked, "Were you trapped in the past or the future? Were you pulled by regret or worry?" The student shook his head. "No, there was only the strawberry." The master smiled. "This is the peace you seek," he said, "not by forcing thoughts to disappear, but by arriving fully in what is here. A strawberry, a breath, a simple task, even a difficult feeling. When you are fully present, the past and future cannot touch you. They exist only as thought." The student hesitated, then asked, "But Master, a strawberry is easy. What about when something is painful?" The master nodded. "The practice is the same," he said. "The moment changes. The awareness does not have to change. This is the freedom of Zen. Presence is available in sweetness and in difficulty." From that day, the student stopped struggling to force a special state. He simply practiced returning, again and again. And to his surprise, the peace he wanted was often waiting inside ordinary moments. Tonight, you do not need to see, "Hey, sleep." You can rest in the simple reality of this moment, the weight of your body, the texture of the blanket, the quiet rhythm of breathing. This gentle Zen sleep story is only pointing you back to what is already here. Now, a story about clearing what covers our natural clarity. This is polishing the mirror. A young monk went to his Zen teacher after years of practice. "Master," he said, "I have practiced diligently. I meditate each day. I study. I try to live well. Yet awakening feels far away. What am I doing wrong?" The old teacher did not answer right away. He led the monk to a storage room behind the monastery. There, hidden behind old items, sat an ancient mirror. Dust covered it. Grime and age had dulled it until it could barely reflect anything. The teacher asked, "Do you see this mirror?" "Yes," the monk said. "Was the mirror created by the dust?" the teacher asked. "No," the monk replied. "The dust only covers it." "And if someone wanted to see their reflection," the teacher said, "what would they need to do?" "They would need to clean it," the monk answered. The teacher handed him a cloth. "Then clean it." Day after day, the monk polished the mirror. At first the dirt seemed endless, but slowly the surface began to shine. Week by week, the mirror returned to its clear brightness. When it was finished, the teacher came and looked at it. He asked, "Did your polishing create the mirror's ability to reflect?" "No," the monk said. "It was always there. I only removed what covered it." The teacher nodded. "So it is with you," he said softly. "Awakening is not something you manufacture. Your clear nature has been present from the beginning. Practice does not add what is missing. It removes what hides what is already here." The monk felt his chest loosen. The path suddenly felt kinder, less strained. Tonight, you can imagine the day's dust settling. Thoughts that are tired, tension that can soften. Nothing to force. Only a gentle clearing. Sleep often comes the same way. Not as an achievement, but as something that appears when the mind stops gripping. Now, a story about simplicity. This is pointing at the moon. One evening, a Zen master walked with a student under a bright full moon. The night was clear. Moonlight lay across the path like silver. The student looked troubled. "What troubles you?" the master asked. "I have been studying teachings diligently," the student said. "But the more I read, the more confused I become. One text says one thing, another says something else. I cannot make it all fit. The master listened. Then he stopped and pointed up at the moon. "Look," he said. The student looked. Then the master asked, "Are you looking at my finger or at the moon?" "At the moon," the student answered. "And did you need to study my finger to see the moon?" the master asked. "No," the student said. "Your finger only pointed." The master nodded. "Teachings and methods are like fingers," he said. "They point, they guide, but they are not the moon itself. If you become obsessed with the finger, comparing it, judging it, arguing about it, you may miss what it points toward." They continued walking. "The teachings may sound different," the master said, "because people are different. One teaching helps one mind. Another helps another mind. Many fingers point to the same moon." The student grew quiet. He stopped trying to solve everything in his head. He simply felt the cool air. He heard crickets. He saw the moonlight on the ground. And he understood that direct experience was closer than any explanation. Tonight, you do not need to analyze these words. You do not need to gather ideas. You can simply let them point you toward the calm experience of this moment. Now, let us continue with another story about steadiness in the face of change. In a small village nestled among rolling hills, there lived an old farmer known for his quiet equanimity. No matter what happened, good or bad, the farmer kept the same calm presence. When people brought him news, he often answered with a simple phrase, "We will see." One day, his only horse, the horse he needed for ploughing and carrying loads, broke through the fence and ran away. When the neighbors heard, they gathered at his home. "What terrible luck," they said. "How will you manage now? This is a tragedy." The farmer listened and replied, "We will see." A week later, the horse returned, and it was not alone. A herd of wild horses followed it back. Suddenly, the farmer had many strong horses in his corral. The neighbors rushed over again, excited. "What amazing luck," they said. "You will be the richest farmer in the village." The farmer nodded politely and said, "We will see." The next day, the farmer's son began training the wild horses. One spirited stallion threw him hard. A boy broke his leg badly. The neighbors came once more, full of sympathy. "How unfortunate," they said. "He cannot help with the farm work. With harvest coming, this is a disaster." The farmer thanked them and said, "We will see." Within a week, military officials arrived in the village. A war had begun, and they were taking all able young men. Families wept as sons were led away. But the farmer's son, with a broken leg, was passed over and allowed to stay home. The neighbors returned, crying for their own loss, and amazed by what now seemed like the farmer's good fortune. The farmer listened with compassion, and again he said, "We will see." This is not coldness, it is steadiness. Life changes shape. The meaning of an event keeps unfolding. What looks like loss can become protection. What looks like gain can bring new difficulty. For a calm mind and a quiet night, this simple practice matters. We do not have to decide everything right away. We can loosen the grip of judgment and let life reveal itself in time. Tonight, if your mind is labeling your life as good or bad, success or failure, you can try the farmer's words, "We will see." And as you say it, notice the body soften. Notice the breath become easier. This is how stress relief begins, not by solving everything, but by releasing the need to judge everything. Now, a story about true wisdom. This is the cup of tea. A university professor, respected for his knowledge, visited a Zen master. The professor had read many Zen books and written papers about them. He wanted to meet a living teacher, and he also wanted to show how much he knew. The master welcomed him into a simple room and invited him to sit. Before any discussion, the master said, "Let us have tea." As the master prepared the tea, the professor began talking. He quoted books, compared ideas, explained theories. He spoke at length, filling the space with words. The master listened quietly. When the tea was ready, the master placed a cup in front of the professor and began to pour. The cup filled to the brim, but the master kept pouring. Tea spilled over the rim, across the table, and into the professor's lap. The professor jumped up. "Stop. The cup is full. No more will go in." The master looked at him and said calmly, "Your mind is like this cup, full of opinions and conclusions. How can you receive anything new until you empty it?" The professor froze. Then he grew quiet. In that moment, he understood. Knowledge can become a wall. A full cup leaves no room. He bowed. "Please teach me," he said, "as if I am a beginner." The master nodded. When the mind is open, there is space, and in space, fresh understanding can appear. Tonight, you do not need to fill your mind with effort. You can let it empty. You can listen without needing to analyze. This gentle Zen sleep story works best when you stop trying to figure it out and simply let it wash through you until you fall asleep naturally. Now, a story about heaven and hell and how quickly the mind creates them. This is the gate of paradise. A samurai, known for skill and pride, began to feel restless. After many battles and years of service, he was troubled by questions about life, death, and meaning. He heard of a Zen master living in a remote mountain temple and traveled to seek answers. When he arrived at the gate, the master came out to greet him. The samurai introduced himself with titles and achievements, then asked, "Master, tell me about heaven and hell." The Zen master looked up at him and laughed. "You," the master said, "a great warrior. You look like a fool in armor. What lord would want you guarding him? Go away. Do not waste my time." The samurai's face flushed. His pride was wounded. Rage surged through him. He drew his sword and lifted it high, ready to strike the old monk. The Zen master looked into his eyes and said softly, "That is the gate of hell." The samurai froze. In an instant, he saw what was happening inside him. Hell was not somewhere far away. It had appeared right here in his own mind, created by pride and anger. His arm lowered. The sword slipped back into its sheath. He bowed, shaken and grateful. The master said, "And that is the gate of paradise." The samurai understood then. Heaven and hell are not only places. They are states we enter through our reactions. One moment of rage creates a burning world. One moment of awareness opens a calmer one. Tonight, as you rest, you can choose the softer gate. You can let thoughts pass without grabbing them. You can let old arguments fade. You can let the body sink down and let the breath carry you into deep sleep. We will continue gently, story by story, until the mind grows quiet enough to rest. No matter what happened, good or bad, he kept the same steady presence. When people brought him news, he often answered with a simple phrase, "We will see." One day, the farmer's only horse broke through the fence and ran away. It was the horse he depended on for ploughing and for carrying crops to market. The neighbors gathered at his home full of concern. "What terrible luck," they said. "Your only horse is gone. How will you manage now? This is a tragedy." The farmer listened and replied, "We will see." A week later, the horse returned, and it did not come back alone. A herd of wild horses followed it into the corral. Now the farmer, who had owned just one horse, suddenly had many. The neighbors rushed back, excited. "What amazing luck," they said. "You will be the richest farmer in the village." The farmer nodded and said, "We will see." The next day, the farmer's son began training the wild horses. One strong stallion threw him. He landed badly and broke his leg. The neighbors returned again. "How unfortunate," they said. "Your son cannot help with the work. With harvest coming, this is surely a disaster." The farmer thanked them and said, "We will see." Within a week, officials came to the village, taking all able young men to fight in a war. Families yelled as their sons were taken away. But the farmer's son, because of his broken leg, was passed over and allowed to remain at home. The neighbors came back, grieving for their own families, and amazed by what now seemed like the farmer's good fortune. The farmer listened with compassion and once again said, "We will see." This is the heart of the story. No event can be fully judged in isolation. Life keeps unfolding. What looks like loss can become protection. What looks like gain can bring new difficulty. The mind likes to label everything: good, bad, lucky, unlucky. But reality is wider than our labels. Tonight, if your mind is judging your life, you can try the farmer's words. We will see. Let the phrase soften the tightness in the chest. Let it ease the need to predict everything. This is how a calm mind begins, and how deep sleep becomes easier. Now, a story about true wisdom. This is the cup of tea. A university professor, known for his learning, visited a Zen master. He had studied Zen books for years and wanted to meet a living teacher. He also wanted to show how much he understood. The master welcomed him into a simple room and invited him to sit. "Let us have tea first," the master said. As the master prepared the tea, the professor began speaking. He quoted texts, compared ideas, and explained theories. He filled the room with words. The master listened quietly. Then he placed a cup in front of the professor and began to pour. The cup filled to the brim, but the master kept pouring. Tea spilled over the rim and across the table. The professor jumped up. "Stop," he said. "The cup is full. No more will go in." The master looked at him and said calmly, "Your mind is like this cup, full of opinions and conclusions. How can I show you anything new until you empty it?" The professor went silent. He understood that knowledge can become a wall. A full cup leaves no space. Tonight, you do not need to fill your mind. You do not need to solve anything. You can let the cup empty. You can listen simply, and the body can begin to rest. Now, a story about heaven and hell, and how quickly the mind creates them. This is the gate of paradise. A samurai, known for his skill and pride, began to feel restless inside. After years of fighting and service, he was troubled by questions about life and death. He heard of a Zen master living in a remote temple and traveled there, seeking answers. At the gate, the old master came out to greet him. The samurai spoke of his titles and achievements, then asked, "Tell me about heaven and hell." The Zen master looked up at him and laughed. "You ask about heaven and hell," he said, "but you cannot even control your own mind. Look at you, full of pride. You are not worth my time." The samurai's face flushed. His pride was wounded. Anger surged through him. He drew his sword and lifted it, ready to strike. The Zen master looked directly into his eyes and said, very softly, "That is the gate of hell." The samurai froze. In an instant, he saw what had happened. Hell had appeared inside him, made of pride and rage. He lowered the sword. He placed it back in its sheath. He bowed deeply. The master said, "And that is the gate of paradise." The samurai understood. Heaven and hell are not only places. They are states we enter through our reactions. A moment of anger creates a burning world. A moment of awareness opens a calmer one. Tonight, as you move towards sleep, notice if the mind starts building a small hell out of worry, planning, or replaying the day. If you notice it, you can lower the sword the way the samurai did. You can let the thought pass. You can soften the breath. You can return to the quiet gate, the one that leads toward rest. The Buddha taught that you are not punished for your anger. You are punished by your anger. The burning comes from the anger itself, not as a punishment, but as a direct experience, a small hell made of heat and tension. And the calmer moments come the same way, not as a reward, but as the natural result of awareness, compassion, and presence. You can notice these gates in ordinary life. A slow driver in front of you, and the mind tightens. A small hell of irritation. A child makes a mistake, and you respond with patience. A small paradise of kindness. These choices shape the climate of the mind day after day. Tonight, as you move towards sleep, notice if the mind begins building a little hell out of worry, planning, or replaying the day. If you notice it, you can lower the sword the way the samurai did. You can soften the body. You can decline the hot coal. You can choose a calmer gate. And with that, we continue. Now, a story about true wealth and seeing what cannot be stolen. This is Ryokan and the Moon. Long ago in Japan, there lived a Zen monk named Ryokan. He lived alone in a small hut on a mountainside with few possessions. His life was simple, and his face often carried a quiet contentment. One evening, a thief slipped into Ryokan's hut. The thief searched the room, but there was nothing of value. Ryokan was sitting in meditation and heard the movement. Without turning, he spoke gently. "You have come a long way," he said. "You should not return empty-handed. Please take my robe." The thief froze. Then, confused and startled, he took the worn robe and hurried away into the night. Ryokan sat quietly, now with nothing covering his body. He looked out the window and saw a full moon lighting the mountains. He sighed softly. "Poor fellow," he said. "I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." The thief came looking for possessions, but Ryokan lived with something deeper. The ability to receive the beauty of the present moment, the freedom of not needing to hold on. There are treasures that cannot be locked in a box. The sound of wind, the softness of moonlight, the simple miracle of breathing. These are always here. Tonight, you do not need to chase anything. You can simply notice what is already given. Now, another story about choosing a path without becoming trapped in confusion. This is choosing the right boat. A young seeker traveled to a riverside monastery, feeling overwhelmed. He had studied many traditions and practices, and each seemed to point in a different direction. He told an elderly master, "I cannot decide what path to follow. How do I know which is the right one?" The master led him down to the riverbank. Several boats were tied there. Fishing boats, cargo boats, small rowboats, larger boats with sails. The master asked, "Which of these is the right boat?" The seeker frowned. "The right boat for what?" The master nodded. "Exactly. Without knowing your destination, how can you choose? Some boats are made for fishing, some for carrying heavy loads, some for speed, some for shallow water. None is universally right. Each serves its purpose." He looked at the young man kindly. "So it is with practice. The question is not which path is right for everyone. The question is what helps you here in your life. What quiets your mind? What softens your heart? What makes you more awake and more kind?" The seeker asked, "But are some paths not superior?" The master smiled. "Is a sailboat superior to a rowboat? or do they serve different conditions? All boats share one purpose, to cross without sinking. He paused. And remember, the boat is not the destination. When you reach the other shore, you do not carry the boat on your back. Tonight, you are not carrying anything. You are only resting. You are letting the mind be simple. This gentle Zen sleep story is one boat for this night. Now, a story that points beyond answering and into direct experience. This is the sound of one hand. A Zen master named Hakuin was known for rigorous training and for guiding students beyond intellectual understanding. He often gave a simple question. What is the sound of one hand? A young monk came to study with him. After some time, Hakuin gave him this question and said, "Do not bring me ideas. Bring me what is real." The monk went away and struggled. After a few days, he returned and offered an answer. The sound of one hand is water in a stream. Hakuin shook his head. "No, continue." The monk returned again with another answer. The sound of one hand is wind in pine needles. Hakuin said, "No, that is still the sound of something. Go deeper." Again and again, the monk returned with clever answers. A bird, a bell, a rustling leaf. Each time, Hakuin sent him back. Months passed. Slowly, the monk grew tired of trying to be clever. The question began to sink beneath words. He could no longer hold it with a thinking mind. Then one morning, something opened. He went to Hakuin and stood in simple presence. No explanation, no argument, nothing to prove. Hakuin looked at him and smiled. The teaching was not a puzzle to solve. It was a doorway, a way of exhausting concepts until direct experience remained. Tonight, you do not need answers. You do not need to force the mind into understanding. You can simply be here, feeling the weight of the body, hearing the quiet sounds of the room, letting sleep come in its own time. Now, our final story, about seeking and the end of seeking. This is the sacred mountain. In ancient China, a young scholar named Li devoted years to studying spiritual texts. He read, memorized, debated, and searched. Yet he still felt something missing, a direct taste of what the teachings pointed toward. He heard of a Zen master living as a hermit on a sacred mountain, and he decided to go. He traveled for many days through forests and steep slopes. At last, he reached a simple hut. The old master welcomed him and offered a simple meal. Afterward, Li said, "Master, I have studied many teachings, but I feel I am missing the essence. Tell me, what is the ultimate truth? What is enlightenment?" The master looked at him kindly. "Would you like some tea?" he asked. Li nodded. While the water warmed, the master asked, "As you climbed the mountain, what did you notice?" Li thought. The path was difficult. There were rocks and roots. I had to stop and catch my breath. "And did you notice anything else?" the master asked. Li paused. There were pine trees, wildflowers, a clear stream, and sometimes the trees opened and I could see the valley far below. The master poured the tea and handed Li a cup. "And now that you are here," he asked, "what do you expect to find?" Li hesitated. "Some final teaching," he said. "Something that makes everything clear." They sat together at the entrance of the hut. The sky was wide. Mountains rose in the distance. Clouds moved slowly. Birds crossed the air like quiet brushstrokes. After a while, the master spoke. "The truth you seek was present in every step of your journey, in the effort of climbing, in the stream, in the view, in the breath. It is here now, in this cup of tea, and in the awareness that knows it." He looked gently at Li. "There is nothing to attain beyond what is already present. Awakening is not a special place. It is seeing the sacred nature of ordinary life. Lee frowned. Then why did I need to come all this way? The master smiled. The journey was necessary because you believed the truth was somewhere else. Sometimes we must exhaust the habit of seeking before we can see what has never been absent. Lee sat very still, and in the quiet, something in him relaxed. The mountain did not change. The tea did not change, but his mind softened, and the truth felt close, simple, and immediate. Now, as we come to the end of this gentle journey, you do not need to hold these stories in your mind. You can let them settle naturally. They were never meant to be collected like facts. They were meant to point you back to the calm that is already here. The body knows how to rest. The breath knows how to slow. The mind can become quiet when it no longer needs to search.